So let me start with the program from Emily Feistritzer. Emily?
Thank you. This has, so far for me, been a very invigorating and exciting learning experience to revisit the history and the current status of teacher education in the United States. I would like to start by way of how I got to creating the Teach Now program, which is a full-service teacher preparation program. For those of you who know me, I hope you find this amusing. For those of you who don't know me, it's my story. And if I can get the slide to go forward. I am a retired Benedictine nun. I'm a retired high school science and math teacher. I am a retired university teacher educator. I'm a retired analyst of teacher education programs. I am the retired founder and CEO of the National Center for Education Information and the National Center for Alternative Certification. So I've spent my entire life doing all of those things. And in 2011, I looked up and said, if I'm going to live to see teachers prepared in tomorrow's learning world, I might as well create it. So that's the beginning and inception of how Teach Now was started. In 2016, I am still the head of that program, and it has about 650 candidates in 66 countries in 42 states, and about 250 graduates. And it's not a program, I have to say this, that is about making money or an investment program. My dogs will testify that we have lived on peanut butter and honey sandwiches and cheap dog food for the beginning days of Teach Now. So this has been a work of passion. So what is Teach Now? Teach Now primarily is a custom-built, cloud-based platform, which we've put a curriculum on. It's a faculty-led program, and it is designed for preparing and certifying teachers all over the world. Teach Now's basic mission statement and reason for existing was to create a program that would equip, enable, and empower teachers anywhere in the world to be able to go into any classroom in the world and diagnose where each of the learners they were responsible for was coming from in terms of their backgrounds, their academic levels, their ability levels, and be able to then plan and design learning experiences that ensure that each kid learned. So our big E words are equip, enable, and empower teachers in the 21st century and in the 22nd century to be able to be diagnosticians and problem solvers. The program is very digitally based. In setting out to fulfill that mission of equipping, enabling, and empowering, we asked the question, in an ideal world, if you could create the ideal program for preparing tomorrow's teachers for tomorrow's students in tomorrow's learning world, what would it look like? And we were driven to having it be a collaboration-based program, real-world activity-based program, competency-based, and technology-based. So the very root of Teach Now is technology. As some of you, many of you know, one of the things the National Center for Education Information did was survey teachers every few years. We started surveying public school teachers in the U.S. in 1985, and the last survey was done in 2011. And one of the questions that we asked teachers was, what was most valuable to you in developing competence to teach? And the areas that we asked about, you see here on the left, one's own teaching experiences, other teachers, education methods courses, courses in subject area, et cetera. This slide shows overwhelmingly in every year that teachers were surveyed, starting in 1996, the overwhelming top two are the actual practice of teaching and working with other teachers' colleagues. So that I've watched this and been really intrigued by it over all of these many years. And it served as a big impetus for the way we built this learning to teach platform called Teach Now. This slide just summarizes it and makes it even more dramatic, that the two outliers on most valuable in developing competence to teach are one's own teaching experiences and other teachers' colleagues. And at the lower end of the scale are the faculty in one's subject area major, education methods courses, and College of Education faculty. We surveyed our alumni last month and asked the same question, and the green egg markers are how Teach Now completers. These are people who have been through our 9-month program. And they too rate one's own teaching experience and working with other teachers' colleagues most highly in developing competence to teach. You might also note that our candidates, our completers, actually rate the faculty and subject area and education methods courses and faculty and education more highly than public school teachers in the US that we've surveyed in the past. The top green button up there was a question that we asked our candidates, which was to evaluate their own experiences in our program, their own clinical experiences, and 95% of our candidates said that was the most valuable component in developing competence to teach. Charlotte Danielson this week has a commentary in Education Week in which she says that the thing that's going to make the most difference is if we stop in professional development and training teachers as if they are recipients of expert knowledge and actually have them collaborate and problem solve and work together. Charlotte is a friend of mine. I've worked a lot with her, so it's gratifying to have her come out and actually validate the very ground level that Teach Now is built on, which is collaborative learning to teach. At the end of my presentation, I will actually show you some data from our program that really shows not only that we collaborate, but that people learn much better. I'm going to go right on to the next slide because it duplicates what's on here. This is just a brief history of Teach Now, just so you know. It was an idea in the summer of 2011. New Schools Venture Fund gave us $100,000 for the idea in October of 2011, and we were off and running. I engaged a software e-learning architect company in India, and we started working in November of 2011 to build the platform that is activity-based collaborative learning to teach. It's content agnostic. You could teach pharmacists on it. You could put any area that you wanted to on it. So the learning platform is not specific to training teachers. It is for us, but it wouldn't need to be. We built a program based on in-task standards, and it turned out, it was like, well, how long is it going to be? And we said, well, let's just build it. So we built a curriculum based on the 10 in-task standards for training. The intention was that it would train initial teachers to get certified to teach. And it turns out that it became an 8-course or 8-module program delivered in 9 months. So we submitted that program to the District of Columbia, Office of the State Superintendent of Education, and the Arizona Department of Education to be an approved program leading to a teaching license. And we got that teaching license capability, or we got the approved program status from the District of Columbia in February of 2013 or 2012, pardon me, and we got it in Arizona in June of that year. We started the first cohorts of candidates. We had 10 candidates who were located in 8 countries around the world. We want to be an international program. And they started the program on March 18th of 2013. Since then, we have a university partnership where a university crosswalked our curriculum and decided that it was their master's degree. So candidates actually could enroll in the university and enroll in their courses, but they actually go through the Teach Now curriculum. And that happened in January of 2014. The program is under constant revision. We make changes, lots of changes, every single day in this program. After having the university partnership experience, we thought, well, why don't we be an institution of higher education? So we went through the process of creating an institution of higher education and getting that approved by the state of the District of Columbia. So on July 2nd of 2015, we were licensed to be an institution of higher education, able to grant diplomas and degrees of any level. We have chosen to be a totally post-baccalaureate program, and the advanced degrees that we're now offering are Masters in Education degrees. Who comes to Teach Now? The basic entry requirements for getting into the program is that you have a bachelor's degree, at least a bachelor's degree, and a 3.0 grade point average. We have done no paid advertising to date. We wanted to make sure the platform didn't crash and burn, and we wanted to make sure that the program actually delivered what we promised. So we've had over 3,000 applicants. As I told you before, we have about 650 people currently in the program in 66 countries, and we have 240 graduates. Most all of our candidates are Americans, many of them teaching abroad. 46%, without any advertising, 46% of our demographic are people of color, compared with 28% of the overall U.S. teaching force. 39% of the people who come to Teach Now are men, compared with 24% of the teaching force. 40%, I'm sorry, that is correct. 40% are over 30 years of age. 69% of the people who are in Teach Now have a master's degree or higher. So we're really drawing a different demographic than we've thought of in traditional teacher preparation. For only 4% of the people who come in to Teach Now have a bachelor's degree in education, and 27% have a bachelor's degree in another field. So about 3/4 of all of our people come into this program with degrees in fields other than education. The curriculum and program delivery, as I indicated earlier, are built on NTAS standards. We, in the conversation that occurred earlier about research institutions and the smaller and smaller role that they're playing in the production of teachers, the reverse is actually true. I mean that part's true, but the reverse is occurring in Teach Now because this program is online, it's virtual, and it changes every day. It's resource rich, and the latest research in a given field of teacher education is what our candidates are exposed to. So when we started the program, No Child Left Behind was No Child Left Behind. And one of the activities in the program was go out and find out what No Child Left Behind doesn't exist anymore. You won't find it in Teach Now. You find the new law, and they go out and look up that law and make a video on its impact on teaching. So Teach Now's content is very research-based, and it is based on the latest research. The content is delivered in what we call modules. That's what you call in universities courses. And the modules are organized in week-long units, and the units are made up of activities. The modules typically last 3 to 5 weeks, and there are weekly virtual meetings. The class meets every week, the instructor. We deliver it in cohorts, groups of 12 to 15 individuals. As far as the candidate in the Teach Now program is concerned, that's as big as the program is. It's a learning group of 12 to 15 people. Very often, they're in 10 different countries. The way the cohorts are set up is time zones. We put up a doodle scheduler, and people who are accepted into the program fill out when they're available, and that's how the cohort is established. It's not a program content-wise that is delivered by math ed teachers or phys ed teachers or elementary teachers. This is sort of one of my strongly held beliefs, and whether it's research-based or not is not of particular concern to me, but I believe that teaching is teaching is teaching is teaching. And one of the things that Teach Now is doing for me is proving that I've always been right. So we have people in cohorts who are preschool teachers, physics teachers, IT professionals, English teachers, and after they introduce themselves in the very first virtual classroom session, you would never know that they're from all of these different fields. And every activity in the Teach Now curriculum and the content is a doing activity. So if you're a physics teacher or a math teacher, we assume, and we do, look at transcripts. So if you're seeking to get certified in math, Bill Schmidt, you have to have taken math somewhere along the line as proven by your transcript. So we're not letting people who walk in off the street and have worked at Starbucks become physics teachers or math teachers for that matter. So the cohort model, we found, we've had 6 people in a cohort, we've had 18 and everything in between. 12 to 15 is the ideal number. And they meet virtually at least once a week, and I'm going to show you what that virtual classroom looks like. Everything in Teach Now is collaborative and transparent. I told you that the program is made up of activities, essentially. On any given day, there are about 140 activities in the entire program. Every time anybody, a candidate, an instructor, or a mentor in the program hits a submit button, it's an automatic data point. So it auto-generates a data point. We know absolutely everything at any given moment, what anybody and everybody is not only doing, but how they're doing. I'll show you in a minute, we evaluate activities on a 4-point rubric for every single activity. And those rubrics have been tested and reviewed by psychometricians. So we're not just sort of making this up off of a dining room table. But one of the things that we really wanted to have happen in Teach Now and in any teacher preparation program, as far as I'm concerned, is everybody knows what everybody else is doing. You cannot cheat in Teach Now because you know what everybody else submitted. So as soon as anybody in the cohort submits an activity, everybody else in the cohort gets a notification that it's been submitted, and they can look at it and comment on it and review it. And as our data shows, and I will be able to show you in a few minutes, we have recorded, as of the middle of March, 70,000 comments that have been made across 80 cohorts that have gone through this program. So there's an enormous amount of commenting and discussing online, as well as through our virtual environment. The learning design on which all of this was built was activity project work. The program has a very robust clinical set of experiences. People actually in Teach Now either practice or observe practice from the beginning of the program. The last 12 weeks of the 9-month program are practice teaching in a classroom. Many of our candidates come into the program already teaching in Saudi Arabia or Mozambique or someplace. If they're not, no matter if they are in Saudi Arabia or Mozambique or Washington, D.C., the program, we take the responsibility for finding them a teacher placement and getting a mentor identified who works with that candidate on site during the 12-week final portion of the program. The program is so digitally tool and resource rich that it just is mind-boggling. We add resources, we subtract resources, we get resources from candidates. It's an automatic feed for all kinds of resources. Every activity in Teach Now, you never take a test, you never listen to a lecture. You go out and you might listen to a lecture that we use as a resource. You might go out and look at a video, but the products that are produced in Teach Now integrate not only the knowledge that you've acquired, but how to teach it, its impact on teaching. The 4 elements, and I think oh my God. Okay, we'll go through this really fast. It's pretty obvious that it's technology-based, it's collaborative, it's practice-based, and it's clinically based. These are the current modules in the certification, the 9-month certification program. The culture of schooling, learner and learning in a digital age, managing the learning environment, planning and preparation for learning, student assessments, instructional practice for specific subject and grade, and teacher practice and proficiency. All of you would recognize those as the pretty traditional courses that one would take if they're being prepared to teach. This slide is just a screenshot of our virtual classroom. People log on with webcams and audio. We talk live with each other. They work on projects together. This can be morphed into a share screen page, a whiteboard. You can actually write a paper together right in the virtual classroom. You can chat, take polls, do whatever. As long as I've lived and in as many classrooms as I've been in, I've never been in a more intimate one than a virtual classroom. And that's a true statement. This is what the what the candidates' homepage looks like. And just fundamentally, you can't read any of it. The graphs are progress reports and performance, actual performance. Inactivity is defined in the program by this basic outline. They're given an overview. In this particular activity, they're actually learning about students in a digital age. What they're basically asked to do is a case study of a student in a classroom that they're teaching in, might be teaching in, used to teach in, school they went to, but they're learning actually how to diagnose learner needs. of each of the learners that they're going to be teaching. So we provide them with some resources, and I really am going to run out of time before I get to where I want to be. This is the product. This is an infographic that a candidate did on this particular activity. And if you could read it, you would see that this candidate has really done, and all of our candidates are forced to do this, a really deep dive into learning an awful lot about that particular student. And they repeat that so basically what we're teaching them how to do is how to do that. So that on the first day of school or when they're preparing their lesson plans, they know what the needs of the students that they're teaching are. This is just a thrown-up rubric to prove to you that we have them, and that they're quite rigorous, and that they're psychometrically good. And they automatically, when an instructor evaluates an activity, they're weighted, it automatically generates a grade. So we have a 0 to 4 grading system. Does it work? Does Teach Now work? 93% of the people who start our program finish it. We even are blown away by that. The reason I think is quite simple. We're candidate driven, and everybody in Teach Now is focused on the success of our candidates. We have candidate coordinators, we have instructors, they have access to me, but we do not let anybody slip through the cracks. If you miss 3 activities in a row, we're all over you. If you aren't getting a 3.0 grade point average, we're all over you. So it's a very hands-on, one-on-one almost learning environment. We have to say almost. Our data to this point, and we're a new program, shows that everybody who has applied for a teaching license from DC or Arizona has gotten one. Why did we seek to be approved by DC and Arizona? Neither one of them required that you ever step foot in the state to do anything like student teach or take a test, and they have reciprocity with all the other states. We also show that all of our candidates have teaching jobs. 98% of our grads plan to be in an education job 5 years from now. We have data that indicates that half of the current teaching force, people who start teaching, leave in 5 years. 90% of our graduates recommend it to their colleagues and friends and relatives. All of our growth is organic. It's word of mouth. This slide, we ask candidates, and we've asked this of regular teachers, how competent they felt in these areas of teaching when they started Teach Now and when they finished Teach Now. So it wasn't when you began teaching or now. When you started Teach Now, and the blue lines indicate the people who said that they felt very competent in those areas of teaching when they started our program, and the orange lines show how many indicated they were very competent upon completing it. Our praxis test score medians are slightly above all the test takers who take praxis. This just shows that our people, their average scores on these praxis metrics are higher than the passing scores required. That's all that shows. We're not arguing anything else. We do an exit survey. 100% of our people find that the modules are rigorous and challenging. 99% see learning value in course activities and agree that they're a good way to learn. And 99% agree that the activities help them to think critically. This is a slide Tom Vander Ark, you may or may not know. He writes a weekly blog in Ed Week about the future of education. And I don't have time to read all of these. You can look up his blog, but he pretty much defines what we do. He actually wrote a blog about Teach Now. Well, one second. We are starting new master's degrees all the time. The last bullet is what I want to bring to your attention. This platform, this very robust, interactive, dynamic, activity-based collaborative learning platform can be used by you and by anybody that wants to use it. It's licensable, and it is content agnostic. We have several partners, particularly abroad, who are using TeachNow to put their own content on. So thank you very much. I'll be around. I have brochures.